The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. We're going to get started here in just a few minutes while we are collecting our materials to present today. If you guys could use the Q&A pane to let me know where you're dialing in from, I'd love to give some shout outs. I know we got a really large, diverse audience today to talk home Wi-Fi. So please use this next 2-3 minutes to chat in that Q&A pane. Let me know where you're dialing in from. Thanks. All right. Thanks for doing that, folks. We've got the Netherlands, Liverpool, Columbus, Ohio, Denmark, San Diego, Action, Massachusetts, Quebec, Charlotte, South Dakota, Indiana, Muncie, Indiana, Brad from Arizona. Welcome, Brad. Great. Thanks for letting me know where you're dialing in from. More North Carolina, Mexico. Got Tim from the UK, from Derby. Welcome back, Tim. And we've got, let's see, India on. Welcome, gang. Sweden, Martin from Sweden. Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for messaging that in here. I really do appreciate it. So let's see. What do you think, Jim? We got a tie. We've got, who's the farthest here? We've got India.
India.
Yeah, you think that's got
Yeah.
the... All right. Anyone that's further away from Cleveland, Ohio than India, message in. Sorry, Michael from PA. That's she's got you beat. We're going to get going here in about a minute and a half. I've got 10:59 here local time in Cleveland, Ohio. Jim is dialing in from home. He is down in Cincinnati. Is that right, Jim?
Yep. Yeah, it's 11 a.m. here in Cincinnati, and I just checked in India. It is 8:30 at night. So appreciate you guys joining us in the evening from India.
Yes. Yes. Thanks for doing that. I did not
It's
realize that.
cool.
That's commitment. Yes. All right. We've got Matthew from Scotland, Kent, Ohio, Dave. Thanks, everybody. Dubai. Oh, we're getting close now. Dubai in India.
Oh,
All right.
yeah, that's cool. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and get started? Again, everybody, thanks for joining us today. We've got a great webinar scheduled for you. This topic is really hitting home, no pun intended, troubleshooting home Wi-Fi, wireless devices for remote employees. Really something timely. Obviously, our worlds have changed since the coronavirus has hit this globe. And we're going to help you find and fix some Wi-Fi issues on home networks. And with me today is Jim Vada, CWNE number 183, and our global Wi-Fi Solutions Director. Jim, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind.
Yeah, thanks, Don. Good to be here. Like you mentioned, I'm our Director of Global Wi-Fi Solutions. So I manage our team of sales engineers. I'm a CWNE and Cisco CCNP wireless. I am a wireless network engineer, and I've worked in several different verticals, most recently healthcare, but also K-12 and higher ed and MSP and more. So got a pretty broad range of experience with a lot of different AP vendors, not just Cisco. You can follow me on Twitter at Jim Vada, where I'm sometimes tweeting about Wi-Fi, but with the circumstances today, there's a lot of other content out there. And then my blog, my personal blog about Wi-Fi is framebyframewifi.net. So all the content there is about Wi-Fi. It's a little stale, but I've got a few drafts that I'm working on. So hopefully I'll get something out here in the next few weeks. But yeah, that's me.
Well, thanks, Jim. Welcome. So we're going to talk a little bit about home Wi-Fi today. And while Jim is a certified wireless network engineer, you don't need to be to use our products and services. So I wanted to throw that out there from the beginning. So some quick updates I always start these webinars with every week. We remain committed to you as we are all in the same boat here. The 7Signal team is on a firm work from home policy right now that goes for support and of course sales and product development. And we remain committed to hitting our uninterrupted goals, and we haven't hit any hiccups yet. Our product updates are continuing to roll out, our support remains strong, and our sales reps are handling all their meetings virtually. Our shipments are going out on time. So we're going to continue these weekly webinars as well to keep you all updated and give you some new material to fight these new challenges that we're facing. So we don't get into full product tours on these webinars. If you're interested in seeing that, please go to go.7signal.com/tour. And just to head this question off at the pass here, we will share a copy of today's webinar as a recording. And for those of you who want our slides, we'd be happy to do that as well. And then lastly, we are going to have a special offer for those of you on the webinar today and some customers, 2 separate offers. So stay tuned for that. So I thought it would be interesting to lay some common ground here and talk about some problems that our customers are fixing right now. And of course, these bubble up all the same, whether they're from the enterprise or home networks. And that's the end user saying, hey, my Wi-Fi is slow, or I can't connect, or my apps keep crashing for some reason. And what our engineers who are using Mobileye are finding is problems like these: adjacent and co-channel interference, or what we call noisy neighbors, coverage and congestion, and end-to-end problems. Unfortunately, Jim, we know this is that those end users don't call in saying, "Hey, I've got a coverage problem. Can you help me fix it?" Right?
No, they don't say, hey, I'm not sure my channel plan's optimized. Can you help me out?
Exactly. So we're helping our customers find and fix those issues that are starting with, hey, my Wi-Fi is slow, or I can't connect. Just a little bit about us before we get into the main presentation with Jim today. 7Signal's been around since 2007. We've been helping our customers find and fix Wi-Fi issues for that long. We've got 200 customers around the world, all affected by this coronavirus. So since we are a global organization, we are GDPR compliant, so we do make sure that our technology stack is up to date. And then also privacy is really paramount to us. So we want to make sure that we're staying relevant in all the areas of the world that we do sell to. We monitor over 5 million devices on a daily basis, and that crunches a heck of a lot of numbers. We hit a major milestone late last year where we hit 1 billion data points analyzed daily. Really proud of that number. And then, we've got 13 patents here, so what you see from 7Signal, you can only see from 7Signal. So I want to make sure that that was out there as well. Really unique in this environment. So 7Signal's here to enable the wireless world, and what we're doing, or how we're doing it, is we're finding and fixing Wi-Fi issues. So since 2007, we've created a complete outside-in enterprise framework that's completely AP and device agnostic, and that's more relevant now than ever as folks are transitioning to those home Wi-Fis and using more BYOD and less corporate equipment. All of our solutions are modular, meaning we sell a solution to you that's right for your challenge, and it may not include all the modules that we do offer. All of our products are replete with reporting, alerting, and analytics, as you would expect. And what we're looking for are the top 7 Wi-Fi problems. And I mentioned just a few of those in the previous slide, but everything that has to do with the world of Wi-Fi bubbles up to one of these 7 challenges. And of course, it starts with, hey, my Wi-Fi is slow, or I can't connect. But it bubbles up to congestion or coverage, co-channel and radio interference, network services, roaming, adapters and drivers, or wireless LAN configuration. And how we're doing it is we're running active and passive tests on the network and on the device for things like packet loss and throughput, latency and jitter, looking at a MOS score, looking at those adapters and driver combinations, and in some cases, delivering a spectrum analysis. And the industry that we're in is called wireless network monitoring, and that was a phrase coined by Gartner. So I think it's important for all of you to understand what the difference between our outside-in approach and the legacy approach. So that legacy approach, and a lot of our customers or experienced this before they came on board, is they were relying on the access points or the controllers to tell them what was going on in the network. They had no visibility into the end user experience. And that's more paramount now than ever, since your end users are now using the routers that they got at the local hardware store, or excuse me, local electronics store, hopefully not a hardware store. And they still have no insight into those devices or into that end user experience because they don't live where we live. We live on the network's edge, in the air, monitoring from the device or from the network itself. We've become part of the enterprise network, and we're here to complement the access points and controllers and other devices to give you data to help you get right to the root cause of the issue. And since we go back in time, you can pinpoint that issue and you're able to find and fix any issue that having to do with Wi-Fi. In a lot of cases, it's not the Wi-Fi. It could be a connection problem or something else, and you'll learn about that today. So the 2 main modules for 7Signal as part of that 7Signal platform are Mobileye and Sapphire Eye. Starting on the left, Mobileye, which is we're going to spend most of our time talking about today, is the application, or our application, that runs on the device itself. That's for Windows, Mac, and Android devices. 100% software based, and it's looking for things like adapter driver problems, roaming issues, adjacent and co-channel interference, coverage, and congestion. Whereas Sapphire Eye is more of an enterprise solution. It's a piece of hardware, it's software enabled hardware that lives up in the rafters with access points. And that delivers spectrum analysis, does things like looks into network services and wireless LAN configuration, interference, because it does have a spectrum analyzer, coverage, and congestion. So real differentiation between the 2 products. We're going to spend most of our time talking about Mobileye today. We're the only vendor to offer this suite in the industry, so we're really proud of that. So I'm going to hand the controls over to Jim. He's going to tell us a little bit about the challenges and how we can start fixing them.
All right, great. Thanks a lot, Don. So let's dig right into the challenge. So, recently, a whole lot of people got sent home from work because of COVID-19. It's not safe to have big groups together. This is happening all over the world. And they're expected to continue working remotely. But now they're working on home networks with residential internet connections and whatever Wi-Fi network they have put together. And they're still using the enterprise applications they used at work on that nice, polished, high-performance enterprise network that you put together at the buildings and sites that you manage. Those applications work great, but at home, who knows? Clearly there will be performance issues, and unfortunately, you have very little visibility into those networks outside of going through a sort of help desk script with one of your end users that's experiencing problems. But we gotta make it work, right? I mean, the global economy needs people at work, needs jobs getting done, and we gotta keep the ship afloat. So that's the challenge right now. And if we look at what's going on in home Wi-Fi networks, some of the major problems are that they're using consumer grade equipment, which is no surprise. It's low cost. That's what you pick up from the store when you go to buy things. It's only geeks like me that run enterprise class hardware, network hardware at home. A lot of people just use the router with a built-in AP that came from their ISP. And that kind of stuff isn't capable of delivering the same level of performance that enterprise class gear can. They also are using an internet connection that's really best effort. It's not, it's inexpensive compared to a business grade connection because the ISP isn't guaranteeing the same level of performance. There's no quality of service. There's no bandwidth guarantee. And further, the design, the network design at most homes, if you're not a network engineer or work in IT, is often just, fiddle around with things until you can get a web page to load, and then it works, you're done. So, that's good enough to make connectivity work, but often is the cause of performance issues. So let's dig in a little further. I want to show, this is a scary looking AP and router from Asus, and I'm gonna pick on them a little bit, but they're certainly not the only vendor that's doing things like this. And I also want to make sure that you realize I'm not here to pick on end users. They're not network engineers or wireless engineers. They're kind of buying into some of the things that are being marketed towards them, and many of those things are not great when it comes to working from home and actually achieving really good Wi-Fi performance. So here's this box from Asus, the ROG Rapture. What a name! And here are some of the features it has, and this is being marketed for home users. And I just want to go through some of these features and explain how many of them could be a problem for Wi-Fi performance and while working from home, right? And Asus isn't the only one with things like this, but we're just using them as an example. So first of all, here's an AP that has 3 radios in it, 2 5 gigahertz and 1 2.4 gigahertz radio in it. I don't think I've ever seen a home network that needed a 3 radio AP. Also, those APs are going to be using very wide channels. So if there's anyone else in the area, any homes nearby, or oh man, I hope this isn't in a dense apartment complex, they're just going to be stepping all over the spectrum and causing interference and experiencing interference from neighboring networks. So that's a problem. The radios support the DFS band, which is nice. I certainly appreciate that feature, but for an end user, they don't understand that they're sharing the spectrum with weather radar, and if there are DFS hits, their AP is going to start changing channels regularly, and some of those channel changes will require a 60-second silent period where the AP stops transmitting altogether. End users don't know that. They just believe whatever the marketing on the side of the box tells them about. WT Fast is some weird gaming kind of VPN that's not good if you're already using a VPN, and it's not going to help you with your business applications, so don't use that. Adaptive QoS, right? This is this application layer quality of service where it's trying to identify different applications on the Wi-Fi and prioritize things that way. If you've been around for a while, you've probably seen this fall down and break things, even in really expensive enterprise networks. So on consumer grade gear, where stuff is built to the cheapest spec possible, what's the chances that this is actually going to work really well. It's more likely that it could step on some of your enterprise applications and cause some really strange behavior. Mesh networks, use more spectrum by design than other networks. There's nothing wrong with that. Mesh is a fine way to create a home network, but it could cause an issue with running out of spectrum, particularly in the 2.4 gigahertz band. And then we have another layer 7 tool, this time for security purposes. And this one, is particularly scary because now we're getting into the possibility that, using application recognition signatures, we're going to start blocking traffic. And, who knows what this box is going to think of your internal enterprise applications that it's probably never seen before. So, it would just be so much better to have something simple and reliable that just works rather than a box like that. So this is the kind of stuff where, you're going to see at home. And then if you get into some of the way home networks are designed, man, this is, for me, this is a Pinterest board where someone is sharing ways to hide away your home router, your wireless router. And look, it's in boxes, it's under the shelf, it's behind the monitor, it's hidden back in the closet. And I certainly understand the aesthetic concerns, but this is really bad for Wi-Fi performance. And now your enterprise applications are dealing with networks that work this way. One positive trend here is particularly around those mesh products. They're being designed, many of them, to be aesthetically pleasing, to try and convince people to, put that mesh node, right out in the open. Put it on, somewhere where you've got line of sight and it's not, behind a mesh of power cables and, sitting in a filing cabinet or some terrible scenario like that. So there is some hope from that. So some of the typical things we do to troubleshoot home Wi-Fi, a lot of it it comes down to, again, we have a lack of visibility. So there's a lot of ambiguity about what's going on. But you have that conversation with the end user, and they say, "Yeah, I put my router, behind the refrigerator, and for some reason my Skype call stinks." Well, move that router closer, get it out in the open, and try again. Okay, so we're getting better there, but we still actually don't know what the signal strength is on the client. That's where Mobileye can come in and really provide more certainty there. Then there's the tried and true unplug it, plug it back in, have you restarted, which is often it's a mantra for us in IT, but for end users, it can be frustrating to hear those things. It kind of reminds me of calling the cable company tech support and having to go through the script with them every time you think there's an issue, and that's one of the things they'll make you do. And we all know about the level of customer satisfaction that those guys have. But you can't blame them. We're flying blind. We're kind of making best guesses and going through scripts because we don't have good data. So the other question you want to know is, how fast is your internet connection, right? Because if you've got an end user sitting out there on a 768 kilobit per second DSL connection, yeah, they probably might struggle with video conferencing software, especially with the kids at home streaming Netflix right now. So certainly that's an issue that comes up. And then you can try, if you've got someone that's really patient and willing to go along with you, to talk them through going into the command prompt in Windows, for example, trying to ping, for instance, Google's public DNS to verify internet connectivity, and then run more commands to look at the system configuration and the IP addresses. And that's a way to approach it, and you can get some good data from it, but you're not going to have historical data. And certainly going to take up a lot of time and energy without any guarantee that you're going to get a resolution. So that's where Mobileye comes in. That's where, you know, we get more certainty and clarity about what's going on. Mobileye, like Don mentioned, is a software agent that runs on Windows, Mac OS, and Android, and it's collecting Wi-Fi data from those machines and in the background, and then it is presented on a web dashboard for your network team or help desk to look at and observe the problems that the machines encountered. Because it runs on that endpoint, they don't have to be on your enterprise network for you to have visibility. They can be anywhere. And so, you know, with that, let's jump into a demo, and I will show you some of the cool stuff we can do with Mobileye to help you with those remote users. So let's jump over here and share my screen. Awesome.
I can see your screen, Jim.
Thank you, Don. So this is a look at the Mobileye dashboard, and we're just looking at one client here. Let's come back to this because the first thing I want to show you is the configurability here. One thing we can do over here on the right is we can specify which SSIDs we want to collect data from while our clients are connected to them. And a lot of our customers have configured this, so they only get data from their corporate SSIDs. But we can also toggle this menu here to start collecting data from any SSID an end user's on. And people are starting to flip that switch so they can get visibility into those home Wi-Fi networks where people are working now. You know, they're not just going home and doing a few emails in the evening. They're doing webinars live across the world like we're doing right now from home. And so they're toggling the switch to test on every single Wi-Fi network. So when we go back and look at this machine, and we're just looking at one machine here. This is a Windows laptop. We're seeing data from any network he's been connected to. And we've got his signal strength over time, the data rate he's transmitting at. Look at those nice high 802.11ax data rates, pretty cool. His roaming history, I like to dive into the data and just look at it raw, but I'll show you how to look at the problems as well. We can see what channel and band he's connected to and the SSIDs he's connected to, so we can see when he's at work and when he's at home. And we've got a lot of great inventory details about his machine too. So for the network team that usually can't see this kind of info, they can tell, oh, you know, you've got this adapter. Let's see if there's a driver update for it, because we can see that here as well. And even we track changes there. So I can see that, hey, actually on March 3rd, he got a new adapter. That's why we see those nice Wi-Fi 6 data rates in use. So we can track that as well. But more to the point about you know, what we're finding and what to look for those work from home users, there's really a lot here that can be helpful. So one of those things is roaming problems. It's more common to have multi-AP mesh networks at home now. And so you need a device that's going to be roaming between those effectively. You know, maybe you're downstairs hanging out with the kids and you got to take a conference call up. So you go upstairs into the back bedroom to get away from them. And for you to have good Wi-Fi performance, your laptop has to roam to that nearer AP. So we can look at roaming performance and discover issues. Here's a roaming problem that this laptop's had on our corporate network. But look at this. He's also had roaming problems on his home network. Momo Go Boom, I think that's the name of his cat, if I'm correct. Don. I don't know what the
That's absolutely
hashtag
right.
is. He's a big cat guy, but you can see, you know, he had a serious Wi-Fi performance issue because the signal strength was so low, minus 81 dBm. So right away we see that. We don't need to get on the phone with him and try and walk him through discovering that number for us. But we know even more that he had another AP at minus 59 dBm. He didn't have a coverage issue. There wasn't a problem with his internet connection, and there weren't any problems with our application servers he was working with. The problem was his machine didn't roam to his other mesh AP. So maybe we need to change the roaming aggressiveness of that adapter, or maybe we need to look for a driver update, because new adapters often have issues with their roaming algorithms when they're first released. So that's a really handy thing to discover, and you can see by the timestamp exactly when it occurred. So if they're calling the help desk and saying, yeah, you know, on March 3rd, early in the morning, I had really bad network performance, what's going on, right? And this is one of those work from home users suddenly you have to support. Now you know what the issue was. Of course, coverage issues are a significant problem in home networks too. And we can distinguish between those and times when there was a roaming candidate and the machine should have roamed. So here's an instance, you know, when he was somewhere else in the house and only was in range of 1 AP and had low signal strength. So we can see that over time as we scroll through these issues and see when they occurred. Similarly, congestion. So now we're getting potentially past just Wi-Fi issues, but here we're looking at a problem we identified where throughput was low. So Mobileye doesn't just collect Wi-Fi stats, but it can also run a series of active tests, including a throughput test. And here we got a test result that was low, 1.7 megabits per second, which you know, that's on the low end. Now we also know that his data rate and signal strength were nice and healthy. So the next question, of course, is where was that bottleneck that caused the throughput to be low? For a work from home user, that could be their internet connection, or it could be the Wi-Fi, or it could be, you know, something further upstream. Maybe the firewalls where your VPN sessions are terminated are just, you know, getting hammered. But here we can see we've captured the channel utilization of the channel that this client's operating on, and we can see it's at 91%, which is just through the roof. Wi-Fi by itself usually can't even achieve channel utilization that high. So clearly throughput issue here caused by a just totally saturated channel in the RF, and you know, to put a finer point on that, we can see at the time he was using channel 11 in the 2.4 gigahertz band, which, as we know, there are a lot of things in 2.4 gigahertz that could be causing interference and chewing up airtime. So it could be neighboring networks, or it could be, you know, it was 11:30 at night. Maybe he turned on the microwave to make a nice snack for himself and one of his cats. Who knows? But there's all sorts of potential reasons why that could go up. And a good way to get around this would be to say, let's reconfigure your machine to prefer that 5 gigahertz band, or even look at the router itself that has the wireless configuration and see if we can set it to 5 gigahertz exclusively, or make those changes where more users will use 5 gigahertz more than 2.4. So again, we're getting really close to root causes where without this, we're pretty much flying blind. We talked about cochannel interference being a problem, and certainly in denser home environments it can be. Here are some issues just as an example that we've seen at our headquarters, but of course this can happen anywhere, where we've got two APs using the same channel when it would be better if they were using separate channels and then dividing up the contention domains, but instead they're using the same channel. And we know this is a significant problem because we're checking the average channel utilization and it's up above 50%. So that's going to be bad, especially if they're using, you know, real-time applications like voice over Wi-Fi. This is going to be problematic. So we can fix this by suggesting changing to another channel and using a channel that's free. And we can scroll through these and see, you know, here's some instances where the channel utilization was not so bad, so we just call that a warning and not a critical event. We can also look at adjacent channel interference where, you know, it's even worse than CCI. This is where APs are partially overlapping, and in home networks and the 2.4 gigahertz band, you know, you always get that neighbor that's put their AP on channel 4 with a 40 megahertz wide channel, and they're just destroying the whole band. So this will pick up on that and help you discover if that's going on there as well. But then, you know, outside of Wi-Fi, we can measure the performance of your clients and of the availability to your enterprise application servers with the Mobileye agent. So I mentioned that we run a ping and web download and throughput test, but let's look at some of these things. So here are examples where he couldn't even ping his gateway. This is on a test network of ours. But also, if we browse through these, and actually let me update this to a different period of time. Here we go. Yeah, here we go. This is an instance where he was unable to ping this Skype for Business virtual IP address. So if your organization is using Skype for Business, you can customize Mobileye so your clients are testing the availability of that application from whatever network they're on. Maybe his, you know, router is doing some layer 7 voodoo and it's stepped all over the connectivity to this IP address for some reason, or maybe not. But this, you know, when this tells us, yeah, certainly something's problematic here that needs to be addressed. And we can look at the latency there too. So we're looking at latency here. So Skype for Business needs 60 milliseconds or less of round trip time to have acceptable performance. That's their published spec. That's hard to do on a residential network. And here we can see one of those instances where the latency to that Skype server was huge, half of a second. That's really going to cause a really painful voice call where everybody's talking on top of each other because those normal pauses become really long pauses because of the latency. So we can test that. You know, we've got Skype for Business here as an example, but if you've got other servers, even internal servers that you want to test against that they have that they can reach, we can configure those, can be configured as well. And then again, throughput issues. You know, here's some throughput issues where you know, his throughput is kind of marginal, 2, 3, 4 megabits per second. You know, again, if he's in if he's doing a video conference and one of his kids starts streaming Netflix, there's not a lot of headroom here to allow for acceptable performance. And if we look at the upload side, you know, we've got some really awful results. And this is very common in home networks. You know, they'll have very limited upload bandwidth. And here, you know, less than half a megabit per second, this is really going to be a problem for some of your enterprise apps that he's relying on. But again, this is a transient condition. And if he calls the help desk and waits for for a call back, and you manage to get him online and get him to run like a speed test, you might not see this. This was transient. It just happened for a few moments last night, and kind of, oh wow, look at that one. That's really bad. And it comes and goes. So you really need to catch it in the act, or have a tool like this that's capturing historical data so you can comb through it and see when those periods of low throughput occurred. So very handy. Then our web download tests, we can point at any of your web applications and test their reachability and performance as well. We just got google.com here as an example. But again, this is one way just to reactively troubleshoot a work from home user. And there's a lot here, but we can get proactive too. We've got a report called our Wi-Fi report, and it shows all the SSIDs that people are using, since we've configured this to look at everything, and what and who's had issues. So I can scroll through here and see all the different SSIDs. Of course, my home SSID hasn't had any problems, Don. But if there were, I can see the I can see the clients associated with it and drill in and see who they are. So I could bring up this SSID. This is a corporate SSID, but home SSIDs will look the same. See what machines are having issues and what issues they are, and drill into that. Similarly, we have some nice reports like our Wi-Fi problems by AP report, which will show us which APs have had issues, and that'll show us a list, all the home APs that we're testing against as well. And then we can drill in and see what those issues are. We can sort by issues, see who the users on those issues are. And it's our poor original example, Kamuli, who's had issues on that AP. So there's an awful lot here to help out with work from home users. And I'll just go back to the slides now, Don. I'll make you presenter, and we'll just do a quick review.
All right.
And should have control again.
All right, you should see your key point slide.
Yeah, so just a few takeaways. Mobileye helps you go from ambiguity to certainty about the Wi-Fi and network issues that your clients or your work from home users are experiencing. You can see Wi-Fi problems, Wi-Fi performance, and even issues like roaming that are client-centered. And then the end-to-end performance out to your applications is really key in validating that everything's working. So I know none of us want to support home networks. For a long time, we were able to say that's not mine. They need to call their ISP or whoever to fix it. But we're in a new period right now where everyone's kind of improvising and doing their best just to keep the businesses up and running. So if you haven't been called for issues like this yet, you certainly will. So my advice is start thinking about this now. Take some of the tips I gave you today into consideration and get ready for that call to come in. So with that, Don, I think I'll give it back to you then.
That sounds good. Well, thanks, Jim. Great demo, great points on how to find and fix issues on your own without our products. And we're going to help you out today as well with a special offer for those of you who aren't customers. And we even have a special offer for customers as well. So as we get into this Q&A section, and as you're thinking through what questions you want to ask Jim and I, just some food for thought here. We've got an offer for all attendees today. That's 50 Mobileye devices for 50 days to help you get through the coronavirus scare and these remote worker challenges that we're all facing. So the URL to get that offer is go.7signal.com/50 for 50. So go ahead and write that one down. Again, go.7signal.com/50 for 50. Fairly catchy phrase, wouldn't you say, Jim?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So
somebody smart came up with that.
Oh, right. I went to college, buddy. So the customer offer is not quite as catchy, but significant. So we're giving our customers 1,000 licenses for 60 days, in addition to the licenses they own now to help them through these virus challenges, above and beyond their Mobileye licenses. And we do have customers that just have Sapphire Eye licenses. So this will certainly help them through those challenges. So that URL is go.7signal.com/1000 for 60. So those are the two URLs. And if I can have time to chat those into the chat box, I will do that. Again, go.7signal.com/1000 for 60, or /50 for 50. So as you guys were thinking through those questions, now I'll start pulling those up. And I got, as I knew I would, some questions about getting a copy of the slides today and or a recording. We will certainly do that. Happy to do that for you all on this webinar. So you'll get a copy of these, the recording automatically. So an email will go out with a recording. If you don't get it for some reason, or if it ends up in your spam box, all you need to do is reply to any of the emails from me, and I'd be happy to get you what you need. So as we get into some of these questions here, Jim, the first one I see is around Linux. And does Mobileye support Linux? You want to talk to that one?
Sure. We don't have a Linux agent today, but that is an active development, and we're really looking forward to getting that out the door, hopefully not too far into the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have a workaround. So we do have customers who are using a mini PC with Mobileye installed on the mini PC. So that mini PC will act as the client, and it'll give a good snapshot of the environment. Certainly look for coverage issues and interference issues and things like that. So if you'd like more information on our offering for the mini PC, you can shoot me an email as well, or contact your client executive, and we'll get you that information. So question here, Jim, about installing the agent. It says, do you need to install something on the client device for this to work?
You do. So this is a piece of software that runs on that client device. For Windows, it's just a background service. For Mac OS, it's just a daemon running in the background. So there's no UI for to bug your end users. But we are, enterprise friendly. You can push it out in Windows with Microsoft SCCM in bulk, and with Mac OS, you can deploy it with an MDM tool like Jamf or something like that. Same thing for Android. You can deploy it with an MDM tool that way as well.
All right, thank you, Jim. Next question here around pricing. This may be covered later, but I'm an IT consultant. I'd like to consider this for my customers. How is this priced, and is there a minimum commitment? So, so Justin, you can of course use this offer, the 50 for 50 offer, which I'll flash up again. So to get you through this time crunch, but after that, Mobileye is roughly $40 per device per year. So. Not a huge financial commitment, and our minimum order is 100. So hopefully that helps you there, sir. Questions about versions for Mac. Jim, do you want to talk through different versions for Mac that we support?
Sure. We support all versions of Mac OS 10. I got to clarify Mac OS 10 because I'm old school and I remember 9 and those older versions, but Mac OS 10 through Mac OS Mojave, we have full support. Mac OS Catalina, we have a couple bugs. The agent runs, but we need to iron out some issues with roaming analysis there, but you still get a lot of good data otherwise. So all the popular versions of Mac OS, it will run on.
Thank you, sir. We've got time for just one or two more questions here. I'm going to talk to this VPN one, actually, or ask Jim to talk to this as well. How do we get useful end-to-end information when the client system is connected to a campus VPN?
Yeah, it sort of depends on the nature of that VPN. So with a hardware appliance acting as a VPN server, it's really transparent to us We don't know if that VPN is up or down or if it's running, but obviously we can test if you can reach into your internal network with our tools. With software VPNs, you know, we sometimes need to do a little bit on our end to make that work a little bit better. But actually, you know, our developers right now are working through a couple of those issues with some VPN clients to make sure we're still getting test results that way. So we're getting those last few things with VPNs ironed out here shortly.
All right, another question here. How do you measure throughput? Do you do downloads from reference systems,
Oh yeah,
duration of download, etc.?
good question. So we use a server called our Sonar server. It's a lot like an iPerf server, but it has more capabilities, and we give that away free to our customers. And then we also have several Sonar servers hosted out there on the internet by us that you can use as well, and those come configured by default. So our throughput test is terminated on that Sonar server, and it runs for 5 seconds, and we just take the average throughput that we can achieve that way. I should also clarify, it uses HTTP as a protocol, so it's, you know, a little bit closer to real application throughput by measuring it that way. You can also put one on your internal network, though, if you wanted to test performance to that network or to that data center where you're hosting applications.
Thank you. Keep these questions coming, folks. We've got a lot of questions here. I'll try and get to them all. Can we inspect beacons on home APs?
Yeah, we do. That's where we are getting the, for instance, the channel utilization and client count for those APs. We get that from the QBSS information, QBSS load information element in the beacon, where the AP is actually measuring the channel utilization. We just, because obviously most client adapters don't have that capability, we just take it from the beacon at the time we're running our tests and report it that way. So we also, you know, what else do we get from that? We get AP names and some other things. We are parsing those information elements. So, you know, if you have an idea for something you'd like to see, shoot us an email and let us know, because we are collecting a lot of info from those beacons.
All right, time for just a couple more here. We're a little bit over time here, but Neil's got some back-to-back questions. One with, does it work with any wireless device provider? And I think Jim talked about the operating system, so I think we covered that one for you, Neil. The next is, we currently use Meraki. So would this show all APs that are roamed between?
Yes, it will. And if your APs are advertising their AP names and their beacons, we'll show you the names of those APs as they roam, instead of just the BSS ID, which is a MAC address. So yeah, we're fully compatible with Meraki APs.
Question from Peter here around short durations. Can you identify short interruptions about a second or so, which typically experience internet radio from their internet radio service?
Oh, that's interesting. Our tests run at an interval as often as 1 minute. So something that occurs within that minute, we would kind of see in the average that we take over that period of time. But if it's extremely brief like that, it's possible we may not see it. Now, if that's a reoccurring issue, you will see that affect our test results over time. So it'll show up one way or the other.
You know, Jim, I think I'm going to stop it there. Folks, for those of you who have asked questions that we didn't get to, and there's a considerable amount here, we're going to take those on via email, just so we can let folks go back on with their day. We try and keep these webinars to 45 minutes, and I appreciate everyone's time staying on here this long. We had a really great turnout today. Best hour ever from an attendee standpoint and a registration standpoint. So we're excited to keep this conversation going. We just unfortunately have to do it via email or another webinar. We're happy to do those as well. So Jim, thank you very much for your time today. Folks, thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Thanks, everybody.